Within a turbulent world, where feelings and challenges on a regular basis face us, Stoic wisdom seems defiantly, it offers a freeing. Sometimes we need to provide lessons in order to grow. Ourselves from particular connections, even those who have friends or family, is not an exhortation to seclusion, but rather an appeal for sincerity and inner peace. Today we'll look at 11 indicators suggesting that a break is necessary, thus take a seat and thoroughly absorb the insights. Now let's starting with the first item on the list. When connections get in the way of your personal growth, it teaches a valuable lesson. It implies that a companionship that can easily dissolve was never the real thing. This idea makes one think about the fundamentals of real friendship and family. Ideally, love should function as pillars that direct us in the unceasing quest of morality and wisdom. Yet it's important to recognize that some certain interactions could turn us away from this growth path, and determining when our emotional ties are distracting us necessitates serious reflection and brave. Making decisions is a part of this process. Challenging and reassessing our connections are not an easy task. Taking it on requires genuine contemplation and frequently the bravery to make difficult decisions. We might have to examine family relationships with fresh eyes, dynamics, or keep our distance from friendships that work against enhance us. In the end, it's about learning about oneself, and the key is appreciating oneself. Realizing that personal development blends in with the others we travel with wholesome connections, uplift and challenge us constructively while showing respect for our essence and life objectives, so that when we come across connections that hinder our advancement, it's critical to keep in mind the of Serbia. We ought to pursue sincere connections that last a lifetime, and hardship encouraging us in our quest of discernment and directing us toward morality. It's a route filled with discoveries, difficulties, and occasionally required renewals, proceeding to the subsequent point when negative feelings take over a partnership. It's important to explore the domain of these unfavorable feelings, as they can significantly affect our exchanges. Marcus Aurelius, a respected Stoic figure, provides insight on this matter. You are in control of your thoughts. Outside occurrences, recognize this, and you'll gain resilience. This is a powerful assertion, a prompt reminder of the significance of keeping our emotions in check, especially in partnerships where negative feelings such as envy and rage or bitterness overcome. These unpleasant feelings, when they spread widely and take center stage, having the capacity to weaken our inner strength and keep us away from a situation where the ants utilize serenity in a cycle of responses and frequently automate IC responses outside of our control. Even while these feelings are organic, they may distract from the way of restraint and tranquility. The difficulty is in identifying these harmful feelings and admitting that how we respond to them is internal to us. Control, as taught by Marcus Aurelius. We have no control over outside occurrences, possess total control over our responses. To them, this calls for continued critical thinking and self-mastery abilities to sustain emotional and mental health and demanding partnerships. In the event that one often sets up these detrimental emotional conditions, it's essential to assess its dynamics. We need to inquire whether it advances our goals or not, development and well-being, or leaves us trapped in the end. When emotional upheaval. When faced with negative feelings in our connections, we need to access the Marcus emphasized inner strength. Aurelius, this calls for exercise, patience, comprehension, empathy, and understanding, in addition to establishing wholesome borders if needed. It might be essential to removing ourselves from social interactions that obstruct our mental and intellectual development. Is a process of self-awareness and individual empowerment, where relationships are valued and learned. that encourage us and steer clear of those that make it harder for us to go on. To the third point, if you discover that you're altered or under control in a connection, it's important to think about the Stoic viewpoint regarding aeon as highlighted by the well-known Epictetus. This school of thought's philosopher, he provides a potent insight that nobody is free. Whoever does not possess self-mastery emphasizes the significance of individual independence and self-rule are essential components for individual health and management and control of growth inside. Any partnership is a sacrifice of autonomy when it comes to our choices, thoughts, and behavior is continuously impacted by ordered by someone else. It stands for a substantial violation of our individual liberty, such as dynamics directly reject the Stoic ideals that place a premium on self-control and personal independence, is essential to identify the warning indicators of a manipulative or governing partnership that can appear as a persistent critique, lower self-esteem, seclusion from relatives and friends, or the enforcing of choices made without considering others' views. These actions don't just undermine confidence, while also ensnaring the person involved in an emotional cycle as well as mental reliance, admitting oneself to be in a partnership that restricts individual. The first step toward autonomy is Epictetus of Liberation reminds us that the source of true freedom is being the mastery over oneself, which means accepting in control of our own life, making sensible limits and, if required, ending connections that robbing us of our fundamental freedom. Manipulative interpersonal dynamics could seem difficult and agonizing, yet it's an act of tremendous bravery and a crucial step in the taking back control of one's life in this. The liberation journey entails personal growth, self-affirmation, and most importantly, the confirmation of one's own. Fundamentally, independence and worth. Acknowledging and separating ourselves from partnerships that control us is a manifestation of deep regard for oneself. After Epictetus's advice, we ought to aim to become experts of cultivating partnerships in our own lives that respect our independence and allow us to flourish to the best of our abilities. While this procedure could entail challenging choices and psychological difficulties, it eventually results in greater amount of self-actualization and fulfillment. 4. While talking about partnerships that cause more harm than benefit, it's imperative that emphasize the importance of internal health in every person's journey. Poisonous partnerships defined by emotional depletion, ongoing suffering, and negativity is harmful to one's own expansion and development, are necessary for acknowledge that tension is present, unresolved disputes, disrespect for one another, with inadequate emotional assistance as warning signs of a dangerous dynamic. Like dynamics obstruct personal growing, but it can also result in a reduction in both physical and mental well-being. Relationship toxicity may appear through persistent criticism, a lack of manipulation of empathy, or emotional abuse, keeping people stuck in a loop of negativity, where advancement is perceived unachievable in terms of personal and professional facets of life, and the endeavor of internal health requires an A setting that encourages optimism, respect, and encouragement for one another is reciprocated, emotional and mental well-being. When a relationship prevents these features from indicates the requirement for shift, choosing to go a distance. Removing oneself from a harmful relationship is a self-respecting and self-care act. It is accompanied with remorse or dread, yet this decision is essential for creating room for wholesome and positive connections that actually aid in the development and well-being. Stepping away from a detrimental partnership offers an opportunity for taking stock and growing, is a chance to improve self-esteem, reiterate goals and principles, and make progress and improved comprehension of relationships that enhance the quality of life travel. Consequently, it's imperative to pay attention. The telltale symptoms of a poisonous relationship and possess the bravery to ask for change when, in the end, it is imperative to prioritize internal personal development and well-being ought to be a central concern in life, and our ties with one another have a vital function in this procedure. Number 5, if there isn't any regard for one another, we must deal with this matter, especially when considering Stoic values that preserve dignity and restraint. Respect for one another is the cornerstone of wholesome partnerships that include acceptance of diversity with empathy, seeing and comprehending other people's views in partnerships, devoid of miscommunications, pertaining to mutual respect, depreciation, and ongoing strain. Frequently, predominant disrespect shows up as contempt, damaging critique, apathy for the needs of others, and even violent behavior. Actions that have a significant influence, self-worth, and psychological health. Stoic philosophy emphasizes upholding respect and restraint in social situations, exhibiting the same regard for others as aspiration for ourselves during a partnership. Without regard for one another, it becomes damaging, and skewed assessment of these dynamics is vital, requiring an open discussion, defining boundaries clearly, and, if necessary, removing yourself from the partnership, identifying the absence and dealing with it. Respect keeps one's dignity intact and mental health in the end. Partnerships based on reciprocal respect conforms to Stoic notions of value for oneself and personal development. It requires accepting a root of honor and restraint, promoting a happy and healthy amount of connections. 6. When the partnership hinders acceptance of reality, which is in opposition to the focus of Stoic philosophy on facing actuality as it exists. Accepting reality requires knowing circumstances impartially devoid of illusions, or denies connections that are attached to delusions or negative effects, impede genuineness and veracity. Preserving relationships founded on illusions or denying reality separates us from sincere comprehension of who we are, and others may find this disconnection from reality cause judgments to be made using skewed views, and continuous partnerships marred by disappointment, typified by unmet expectations, promises that are too high, or a refusal to recognize issues annoyance as well as discontent with the reality in a relationship by posing challenges essential for one's own growth and constructing pragmatic relationships. Stoicism promotes accepting and interacting with reality, with things as they are, and discovering calm in that comprehension. Acknowledging and separating ourselves from illusion-based dynamics permits the rediscovery of a route to genuineness and contentment. Coincided with impassive, the 7th rule of principles: if you are sacrificing your morals while residing in having one's values in line, is crucial to Stoicism, and a foundational element of a deep connections in life that force, breach, or betrayal of fundamental principles present a conundrum that calls for thought and re-evaluating one's own ideals, acts as an internal compass that directs choices and exchanges when a partnership calls for a disregard for or ignorance of fundamental principles. It undermines one's moral character and results in expressions of discontent, include a pressure to act contrary to accepted views, inappropriate actions, or sacrifice identity is emphasized by Stoic philosophy. Living in accordance with moral principles, requiring bravery to make difficult decisions and look for connections, expressing underlying ideas, evaluating connections again in light of value alignment, could lead to internal disputes. Nonetheless, is necessary for mental health, indicating self-worth and genuineness. Understanding how relationships impact and are reflected in decisions are guided by ideals, guaranteeing pathways in line with principles for genuine and achieving the eighth goal of full life, when there is no reciprocity in the relationship. Reciprocity is a cornerstone of any wholesome and long-lasting, a connection in which there is an imbalanced party continuously donates, but the other only obtains results in an unfair as well as unsustainable relationships that are dynamic and balanced, involve both parties giving and getting in an equitable and just way. In certain cases, reciprocity doesn't need a precise or instantaneous exchange, yet there should be a widespread belief in reciprocal assistance when one party regularly provides, whilst the other person only feels of bitterness, weariness, and devaluation can occur, and this imbalance appear where one individual offers emotional support assistance without payment in return, or practically in routine activities, or making decisions when there is an imbalance. The connection stops being the norm, collaboration, and becomes taxing for one individual, identifying clues of a non-exchangeable bond, and it is imperative that this issue be addressed. May entail candid discussions regarding clarifying requirements and expectations, limits, obligations, and maybe giving the idea of revisiting the long-term relationship viability. It is important to understand that, additionally, self-worth and self-respect are at stake. Giving in to the constant giving without expecting reciprocation can reduce the belief that something is worthwhile. In a relationship, balance is not just concerning justice, but also a deed of self-maintenance to stay well. And relationship enrichment is crucial. To look for connections that are balanced by reciprocity, encourage reciprocal development, courtesy, and pleasure for both sides. These are the kinds of connections we ought to endeavor to foster in our life for the health and well-being of those we connect to. Number 9. In the event that there is abuse in any kind, is categorically unacceptable. Inappropriate in any kind of partnership. Stoic knowledge that highlights the significance of dignity and self-respect clearly instructs us to never accept harsh or abusive actions. Abuse can take many different forms. Forms linguistic, emotional, physical, and economical or psychological, each having an extremely detrimental effect on the victim's physical, mental, and emotional health awareness. Realizing you are in the first step is to leave an abusive relationship. To ask for assistance and make changes it's critical to comprehend that abuse is never acceptable, and the obligation, since the sole source of the abuse is the abuser rather than the person in need of help from relatives, friends, or experts, is necessary to get out from under this. While departing from an abusive relationship can be intimidating and needs bravery and assistance, it's the essential step in recovering one's self-worth, independence, and self-respect after overcoming an abusive partnership comprises confirming one's own power and value in line with the Stoic lessons of self-respect and worth. Leading a life of dignity and respect, devoid of abuse, is an essential freedom for everyone. Ranks 10. When speaking regularly fails, efficient dialogue is crucial to every wholesome partnership. When confronted with circumstances where communication breakdowns occur frequently, whether biased or identified by persistent disagreement, we run across a big barrier to mutual harmony, and being aware of the essential elements in line with Stoic philosophy in interpersonal interactions where there is inadequate communication, misunderstandings, annoyances, and one-sided resentments frequently develop conversation in which one side is in the majority or doesn't give the other room to communicate themselves in a negative way. Imbalance, thus ongoing disputes, and a failure to identify common ground can be taxing and tiresome for Stoics. Respect both balance and harmony, both inside and in interactions with people, promoting the idea of recognizing amicable communication and keeping unneeded confrontations at bay, while encouraging a culture of reciprocity. To improve communication with respect, one must engaging in active listening, expression oneself politely, clearly, and being receptive to communication and comprehension the other individual's perspective.